The box wasn't from Amazon. It had no return address, no logo, just old cardboard wrapped in twine with soot smudges along the bottom, and a name written on the top in faded black ink. Lena Ruiz, my sister's name. She froze. She hadn't used that last name since she turned 18. I looked closer. One of the corners was slightly burned. Not recently, but long ago. The cardboard was warped, like it had once been wet, then dried under pressure. Inside, we found 3 things: a scorched child's library card from our old neighborhood, a silver necklace I hadn't seen since the fire, and a folded paper with a red X marked over the street where our apartment used to be. No note, no explanation, just a man standing across the street, watching, limping. "Ma'am," the neighbor whispered, "that man says he carried your sister through the fire. But to understand how we got to this moment, we need to go back to the beginning. Back then, everything smelled faintly of bleach and reheated coffee. Mom cleaned houses during the day and stitched blouses at night. Our apartment on Granger Street was small but clean, with floors that creaked when you crossed them too fast and windows that never quite closed right. We were 3, Mom, me, and Lena. I was 13, Lena 9. She still believed in magic. I didn't. Most nights, Lena and I would watch TV on the floor while Mom hummed old boleros in the kitchen. A photo of Dad, the only one we had, sat crooked on the shelf. He had died in a car crash when Lena was still a baby. She used to trace his face with her finger like she was trying to memorize him through the glass. There was a rhythm to our life, quiet and tired. Every Tuesday, Mom let us pick a treat from the corner store, a soda or a small candy bar. Lena always chose grape Fanta. She said it reminded her of purple sunsets. She'd say it dramatically like she was in a movie. I used to roll my eyes, but she was the soft one, the glowing one. I was already starting to harden. There were signs now that I look back. That week, the hallway light had started flickering. Our upstairs neighbor kept leaving his stove on. Mom had knocked on his door twice about the smell of gas. The building was old, paint peeled, alarms didn't work, but rent was low, and Mom said we just had to make it through another year. She was saving up to move us somewhere with real bedrooms and a yard. That Friday, she came home with a worn envelope, the kind they used to pay cash under the table. She laid it on the table like a trophy. 2 more months, she whispered. We're almost out. Lena twirled in the living room like she already lived in the new house. I stood at the window, watching the dark. There were sirens down the block. Smoke from a trash fire drifted into the street. Just a normal night in our part of town. I remember that moment like a photograph. The air felt heavy, not hot, just dense, like something was pressing down on the building. I didn't know it then, but it was the kind of stillness that comes right before something breaks. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. She asked to crawl into my bed, something she hadn't done in months. "Just for a little while?" she asked. Her breath was warm on my arm. She held her stuffed tiger like a lifeline. I could hear Mom coughing through the wall, and somewhere below us, a click, a low hiss, maybe a pilot light going out, maybe something worse. I wish I had paid attention. I wish I had known that this was our last night as we were, as that family, in that home, in those shapes. But when you're a kid, you think disasters come with warning bells and breaking glass. In truth, they begin in silence, in small decisions, overlooked corners, and normal good nights. The next morning, we woke to fire. It started with the sound of glass cracking, not breaking, cracking, like ice under pressure. I remember blinking awake, thinking maybe Lena had knocked something over, but the light outside our window was wrong. It pulsed orange and red, like sirens, only brighter. Then came the screaming, not ours, not yet. Voices from the hallway, heavy footsteps, someone banging on a door. I sat up. Lena was still curled beside me, her tiger pressed to her chest. Then the heat hit. It didn't feel like warmth. It felt like the air had changed its mind about letting us breathe. I yelled for Mom. She burst into our room seconds later, barefoot, coughing, her face covered with ash. "Get up. Shoes on. Now." Her voice had that edge I'd only heard once, when Lena almost ran into the street. We didn't have time for anything. Not clothes, not photos, just our bodies and the door. But the hallway was already thick with smoke. The light flickered, then died. Someone shouted, "It's blocked!" from the stairwell. Another voice called out names I didn't recognize. A baby was crying. The The walls groaned like they were tired. Mom turned back to us. "Stay low. Lena, hold your sister's hand and don't let go. We're going down." But we never made it to the stairs. Halfway through the hallway, a section of the ceiling collapsed behind us. The heat surged forward like a monster exhaling. Someone screamed. I don't know who. Maybe me. I tried to hold Lena tighter, but the smoke made everything blur. My lungs stopped listening. The last thing I remember was my hand slipping from hers. Then the floor shifted, or maybe I did. I fell sideways, hit something hard. A wall? A door frame? And then, nothing. I woke up on a stretcher. My eyes burned. My throat felt like gravel. There was a paramedic above me saying something, but I couldn't hear it. All I could think was, "Lena, where's Lena?" They wouldn't tell me right away. Not because they didn't want to, because they didn't know. Hours passed before anyone confirmed she'd been found. Outside, unconscious, but alive. She was carried out before the first responders arrived, they said. We didn't see who brought her. Nobody knew. Some said a neighbor helped. Others said a firefighter, maybe off duty. A few even swore they saw a man in a hoodie, limping, guiding children out and vanishing into the crowd. But nobody had a name, no photo, not even a thank you. Mom was in the ICU for smoke inhalation. I sat beside Lena in the pediatric wing, watching her chest rise and fall, clutching her wrist like I could anchor her there. When she woke, she said one thing. He had a scar on his hand. That's all she remembered. Not his face, not his voice, just a hand, burned, trembling, carrying her down the hallway, whispering, "Almost there, little one, almost there." We never found him. The fire destroyed everything we owned. The building was condemned. The papers covered it for a week, called it a tragedy, called us survivors, but I never felt like one. Not really. Not when the one who saved her walked away without a name. The shelter smelled like disinfectant and plastic mattresses. We stayed there for 2 weeks after the fire, crammed into a room with cinder block walls and one flickering light bulb. Mom could barely speak. Her lungs were raw, and her spirit even more so. She sat by the window most days, staring at nothing. She never asked what we lost. She already knew. Lena had nightmares every night for a month. She'd wake up gasping, hands clawing for someone who wasn't there. "Where's the man with the hand?" she asked once, half asleep. I didn't know how to answer. They said the fire started on the second floor, faulty wiring. Someone had made a complaint weeks earlier, but it hadn't been followed up. Nobody was arrested. Nobody admitted blame. The city gave us a small payout, just enough to cover a deposit and some used furniture. We moved across town into a basement unit that always smelled damp. I started writing in a notebook every night. Not poems or stories, just questions. Who carries a child out of a burning building and disappears? Why didn't he stay for help? Was he scared? Was he hurt? Or was that his whole point? To help without being seen. I asked neighbors. I asked firefighters. I asked the Red Cross volunteers. They all said the same thing. If someone like that was there, he's a ghost now. Mom never spoke about him. I think she didn't want to believe a stranger had done what she hadn't been able to. But Lena, she believed. She remembered things I didn't, like the way he whispered, "I've got you," or how he shielded her face when they passed the flames. One night, she whispered, "He smelled like wood smoke and something sweet, like syrup." She said it so quietly, I almost thought I imagined it. We grew up carrying him like a myth. At school, Lena would draw pictures of a faceless man holding a girl in his arms. At night, I'd reread the journal pages like they held some kind of code. By the time Lena turned 12, she stopped talking about him. She put the drawings in a box, started listening to loud music, got a nose ring, became tougher than I ever was. I held on to the story longer, maybe because I needed it to be real, needed to believe someone could appear from nowhere and choose to save one life when no one was watching. The world moved on. The building was demolished. A parking garage was built in its place. Our story faded, but not for me. I kept the journal, kept the scorched photo of our old apartment, kept the question. And for 18 years, I wondered if I'd ever hear the name of the man who carried my sister through the fire, or if I'd just have to carry him in silence. Time has a strange way of folding itself. One moment you're helping your sister with algebra homework in a moldy basement apartment. The next, you're standing at her college graduation, clapping as she walks across the stage in heels too high and a smile too wide. Lena bloomed in ways I never did. She studied psychology, said she wanted to help kids who'd been through trauma. "I want them to know they're not broken," she said once, "just a little scorched." I think about that word a lot. Scorched, not ruined, just marked. As for me, I became a high school teacher. English lit. I liked the quiet. I liked the rules of storytelling. Beginning, middle, end. Real life rarely follows them. It was a Tuesday when the first letter came. Just a plain envelope slipped under the door of my apartment. No stamp. No return address. Just my name, in handwriting I didn't recognize. Inside was a single line, handwritten in pencil. "The fire took more than wood and brick." No signature. Nothing else. I thought it was a prank, tossed it in a drawer and forgot about it, until the second one arrived. This one came with a photo, not of us, but of the front steps of our old building, taken before the fire. The same crack in the concrete, the same rusted railing, and taped to the back, another note. "She dropped this." I turned the photo over and stared. It took me a minute, but then I saw it, the edge of something silver near the bottom step, a necklace, Lena's. She lost it the night of the fire. We thought it had melted. I showed her the photo. She went pale. "Where did this come from?" "I don't know," I said. "Someone's leaving them." A week later, I caught sight of a man across the street from my school, leaning against a wall, wearing a cap low over his face. He was limping. When I stepped outside, he was gone. I started checking the mail obsessively, watching corners, listening for footsteps. Then one morning, a note was pinned to my windshield. I didn't stay because I was ashamed, but I never forgot her. Something inside me cracked open. I hadn't cried about the fire in over a decade, but that note, those 10 words, undid me, because whoever he was, he remembered. He'd been carrying it too all this time. I didn't know what to do. Lena didn't want to talk about it. If he wanted to be known, he would have said his name, but I couldn't let it go. Not now. A week later, the box arrived, and everything we thought we'd lost came flooding back. Not just the necklace, but the questions, the silence, the man with the scarred hand, the one who vanished into the smoke and was suddenly walking back into our lives, one memory at a time. It was early evening when I heard the knock, 3 quick taps, then nothing. By the time I opened the door, the hallway was empty, just a small cardboard box resting on the doormat, like a question no one wanted to ask out loud. I stared at it for a long time. It was sealed with a single piece of tape, faded and peeling. The edges were worn, one corner scorched like it had barely survived a fire. My hands shook as I picked it up. On top, written in black marker, the kind kids used at school, was a single name, Lena Ruiz. No address, no return label. Just her name. I called her immediately. By the time she arrived, I had cleared the kitchen table and set the box in the center like an offering. We sat across from it, not touching it, like we were afraid it might breathe. She reached out first. When she peeled the tape back, it made a soft tearing sound, like a curtain parting in a theater. Inside, carefully packed in old newspaper, were 3 items: a silver necklace, her necklace, the one with the tiny star-shaped charm she'd worn every day until the fire, tarnished now, but unmistakable. A scorched library card, laminated, edges melted, but the name still visible. Ruiz, Lena. The back was stamped with due dates from nearly 2 decades ago. She gasped. "I remember this. I lost it that night." A folded piece of thick paper, not a letter, a map of our old neighborhood. The streets we used to walk, the shortcut we took to the corner store, even the church where Mom lit candles on Sundays. Drawn in red pen, an X was marked on the exact spot where our apartment building once stood. And that was it. No note, no explanation. Lena ran her fingers over the necklace, holding it up to the light like it might whisper something. "He kept it all this time," she said softly. She looked up at me, eyes wet. "Why now?" I shook my head, but part of me already knew. Maybe because he was dying. Maybe because he was healing. Maybe because 18 years is long enough to carry someone else's memory in silence. We sat in the stillness of that kitchen until the light outside turned gold and the shadows stretched long. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw movement outside. A man stood across the street, old denim jacket, baseball cap, limping. I opened the door, heart in my throat. He didn't wave. He just looked at me, really looked, then nodded once. Not an apology, not a plea, just acknowledgement. And then he turned and walked away, disappearing into the dusk. I didn't follow. Neither did Lena, because somehow we understood. That was all he had to give, and it was enough. It wasn't over. A week after the box, I found a flyer on the bulletin board at the corner grocery store. One of those paper sheets with tabs at the bottom, hand-drawn lines, faded ink. Community meal, free dinner. Sundays at 6 p.m. St. Agnes Shelter Church. All welcome at the bottom, someone had written. No questions asked. I don't know what pulled me there. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was something I couldn't explain. The church sat in the old part of town, tucked between a closed laundromat and a pawn shop. The bricks were weathered, the sign missing a few letters, but it smelled like stew and fresh bread when I stepped inside. Rows of folding tables filled the room. People sat quietly, eating, murmuring, laughing in small bursts. It felt like safety. And then, I saw him. At the back of the room, scooping food into paper bowls with a ladle, stood the man from the street. Same denim jacket, same worn cap, same limp. He looked older than I remembered. Deeper lines around the eyes, salt in the stubble. But there was no mistaking him. The burn scar on his right hand caught the light every time he moved. I stood frozen. He didn't look up, just kept serving. One bowl after another, silent, steady. I waited until the line thinned. Then I walked over and said quietly, "She still wears the necklace." He paused. For a moment he didn't turn, just stared into the empty pot, like it held every memory he never said aloud. Then he looked at me. His eyes weren't surprised. They were tired, gentle, wounded in the way that people are when they've lost too much. "I didn't do it for thanks," he said. His voice was rough but kind. "I know," I said, "but she never forgot." He nodded slowly. "She reminded me of my daughter. Same scared eyes, same tiger on her shirt." He paused. "I lost her in a fire, years before yours." That was all he said. He didn't offer a name, didn't ask for forgiveness or glory. He just reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something small, a matchbox. It was old, stained, half empty. He handed it to me. "I was going to light a candle for her that night," he said. "Never got the chance." And then he turned and went back to ladling soup. I stood there, holding that matchbox like it weighed 100 pounds. That night, Lena and I lit one of the matches and let the flame burn until it kissed the air and vanished. We never saw him again. But every year, on the anniversary of the fire, we light one more, not in mourning, not in guilt, but in gratitude. Because now we knew the truth, not his name, but his heart. Some people leave behind footprints. Others leave behind silence and a matchbox with one final light. We never learned his name, not from the church, not from the flyers. He wasn't on staff, wasn't part of any official group, just a man who showed up sometimes to serve food, then disappeared. And yet, I think about him every time I see fire. Not the destructive kind, but the quiet ones, birthday candles, campfires, the tip of a match in the dark, because he taught me something I didn't understand back then. That not all saviors want to be known. Some just want to make sure someone else gets a second chance. Lena kept the box. She placed it on a shelf in her apartment, beside her degree and a photo of Mom. Inside, she added one more item, a folded card that read, "For whoever you carry next." Because now she volunteers on Sundays. Same church, same tables. Sometimes she brings kids from her clinic, helps them ladle soup or hand out bread. She tells them they matter, not with speeches, but with small acts, quiet care. As for me, I kept the matchbox. There's only one match left. I haven't used it yet. Maybe I never will. Maybe it's meant to remind me that even the smallest light can mean everything when you're lost in the dark. There are still nights when I wake up smelling smoke. Still days I pass someone on the street and wonder, was it him? Could it be? But I don't need to find him anymore. Because now I understand. He never wanted to be found. He just wanted her to live, to grow, to choose something better than fear. And she did. Sometimes Lena tells the story to kids at the shelter. She calls him the man who carries, not because he saved her once, but because his choice still moves through her, through me, through every hand that helps without needing applause. Some names never make the news, but they never leave the heart. We are all in some way carrying someone.
Love this story? Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more. Don't forget to check out the video currently on your screen. You won't want to miss it. See you in the next one.